My mother wants me to kick out my daughter so she can move in with me and I could be her full-time caretaker. I finally snapped. I, 66, am retired, but kept very busy by caring for my mother, 85, and my disabled husband, 64. My mother does not live with us. She resides in an assisted living facility where I visit her every few days to check on her and see if she needs anything. During my latest visit, she brought up how I should finally kick out my daughter. Let's call her Claire, 29. Now, for some context, yes, my daughter still lives with my husband and me for many reasons, including her rather fragile mental health. However, what my mother does not understand is that, despite being parent and child, we are not in a traditional parent-child situation. We are roommates who just happen to be family because neither Claire nor my husband and I can afford separate places in this economy. We are just as dependent on each other as she is on us. Claire holds down a full-time job, which doesn't pay greatly, but it's not awful either. She contributes her fair share for rent, utilities, and groceries, completes her fair share of chores, and sometimes even takes over some of my chores when I need a break. I cook on weekdays when Claire has to work, but she takes over cooking on weekends when she has time off. She has a savings account for emergencies, pays for the family Netflix account, and even uses some of her leftover fun money on little treats for my husband and me, despite my request for her not to waste her limited funds on us. With all that as background, my mother's comments made me angry because Claire works hard to avoid being a burden to my husband and me, even though I tell her that I love her and could never see her as a burden. I also worry my mother may have planted that thought in Claire's head when I wasn't around. Meanwhile, all my mother seems to do is demand, demand, demand. She has nurses available at the assisted living facility and people who run grocery errands for her, but she refuses to use these services and insists that I do everything for her instead. She demands all my time, energy, and attention. I suspect she may want to push me to kick Claire out so she can move in with my husband and me and force me to become her full-time caretaker. My mom knows about our financial situation, but she thinks that's no excuse. I had already been having a tough day, so I snapped and told her that Claire's living situation is none of her damn business. She started crying and asked why I would yell at her for merely being concerned. Update: 3 days later. Yesterday, I sat with my daughter for our Easter tradition of getting together as a family and eating a big batch of my grandmother's pickled eggs. While we ate and made a huge mess, which, if my grandma were to be believed, is essential to the eggs' taste, I reminded Claire that I love her and that she will always be welcome with my husband and me. She seemed a bit confused by it coming up suddenly, but thanked me and told me she loved me too. When I asked if she had spoken to her grandmother lately, she said no. She hadn't talked to my mother since my birthday. Today, I drove to visit my mother again to discuss what happened, and it went surprisingly well. I started by apologizing for snapping at her. Regardless of my mental state, I should not have gone on the attack like that, and I truly am sorry. Sadly, I tend to bottle up my feelings instead of communicating them immediately, and it's something I know I need to work on. However, I also told my mother that I am not willing to talk about Claire's living situation with her, and I asked her to use the facility services a bit more in the future instead of always relying on me, because I have a life of my own and a husband who also needs me, probably more than she does, but I didn't say that part out loud. She started crying again, asking why Claire and I hate her so much. She talked about how Claire never calls and only seems to acknowledge her existence when she has to, and that she has now also turned me against her. She asked if I was really so sure that Claire wouldn't eventually start ignoring me the way she is ignoring her. I was getting very impatient with her again, but I was prepared for it this time and managed to stay calm. I asked her to think back to her interactions with Claire over the past 5 years and the many moments of rudeness or outright cruelty toward Claire. I even named some specific instances Claire has told me about and asked her to put herself in Claire's shoes. Would she want to spend any time with someone who treated her like that? I felt ridiculous talking to my 85-year-old mother as if she were a 5-year-old child. However, when I told her that we love her but at times do not feel particularly loved by her, it seemed to actually get through to her. She stopped crying and told me that she didn't realize her comments hurt my daughter so badly. In my mother's defense, Claire, like me, has the habit of bottling up her feelings in the moment and disengaging instead of communicating unless she feels she can predict the other person's reaction perfectly. So she likely never told my mother that those comments hurt her and just started distancing herself. My mother promised to use the facility's services more and in turn asked me if we could go out and do something fun every now and then. Her definition of fun usually involves going to the casino with a very strictly enforced budget, so we'll see about that. It doesn't sound terrible for some mother-daughter bonding time. I'm not sure how things will develop now, but I am hopeful. I will tell Claire what her grandmother and I talked about today and see if she's willing to give her a chance to make amends. I won't push her though.